This is chapter 4. That night, Minli could not sleep. Ma's words echoed in her ears, and when she closed her eyes, she saw Ba's hand shaking from hard work feeding the goldfish. Ma is right, Minli thought to herself. The goldfish is just another mouth to feed. I can't let Ba feed the goldfish. Ma and Ba work so hard for every grain of rice. Ba shouldn't have to feed the goldfish too. Minli slipped quietly out of her bed and crept to the table where the goldfish was. They stared at each other, and Minli knew what she had to do. Quickly slipping on her shoes and jacket, she took the goldfish and left the house. It was late. The village was quietly asleep, and the stars above filled the sky like spilled salt on dried seaweed. Minli's footsteps seemed to hush the night as she made her way toward the Jade River. At the edge of the river, Minli looked at her goldfish one last time. The moon shone above, so even in the darkness of the night, the fish seemed to burn a bright orange. Its black eyes sparkled at her. I'm sorry I can't keep you, Minli whispered. I hope you will be all right in the river. And with those words, she emptied the bowl into the water. For a moment, the fish seemed shocked and was still like a flickering flame on a match. Then it wiggled in the water and swam in circles, a joyful fire twirling in the water. Minli watched it and sighed. As the sound faded into the night, Minli realized it was an echo of her mother's impatient, frustrated noise. Ma will never stop sighing unless our fortune changes. But how will it ever change? Minli asked ruefully. I guess this is just another question for the old man of the moon. Too bad no one knows how to get to Never-Ending Mountain to ask him anything. The fish stopped swimming and looked up at Minli. I know where it is, it said. The female voice was high and soft, like the wind whistling through the reeds of the water. Minli stared. Did you say something? She asked. Yes, the fish said. I know how you can get to Never-Ending Mountain, and asked the old man of the moon a question. You're a talking fish? Minli asked, her words tumbling into each other with excitement. How can you talk? Most fish talk, the fish said, if you are willing to listen. One, of course, must want to hear. I do, Minli said, enthralled and eager. This was just like one of Ba's stories. She bubbled with excitement. How do you know the way to Never-Ending Mountain? I've swum all the oceans and rivers except for one, the fish said, and on my way to the last, the goldfish man caught me. I despaired in his cart, for I have seen and learned much of the world, including the way to Never-Ending Mountain. Since you have set me free, I will tell you. You've swum all the oceans and rivers? Minli asked. The question spilled like overflowing water. Which river haven't you seen? Why have you traveled so much? Where is Never-Ending Mountain? When did... This river is the one river I have not swum, the fish interrupted, and I have waited a long time to see it. So I would like to start as soon as possible. You can ask the old man of the moon all your other questions. Let me tell you the way to him so I can be off. Minli nodded and asked no more. She realized she was having a conversation with a goldfish, which was very unusual, so she decided to listen. Chapter 5. The next morning, Minli felt as if her head was spinning with thoughts and plans. She was so busy thinking and plotting that she barely noticed her parents nodding sadly at each other when they saw the empty goldfish bowl. And in the fields, when Minli worked as if in a daze, her parents said nothing about her slow and messy planting. Why are her parents acting like that?
Because they lost the goldfish. Well, she gave the goldfish.
Right. She spent the money on the goldfish and then what, Nathaniel?
Put it back in the river.
Right. So now they feel bad because especially Mom made a big deal about spending the money and now she's let the goldfish go. So they're making eyes like this. Like they're not saying things, but they're like looking back and forth at the goldfish bowl. And when she's working and she's kind of dreaming, she's not doing a lot of work, they're not getting on her. They're not saying anything about it because they feel bad that she gave up the goldfish. When the sun began to set and Minli went home to make dinner, she quickly washed and made the rice. Then she set the table for 2 people, sat down and wrote this note. Dear Ma and Ba, I am going to Never-Ending Mountain to ask the old man of the moon how I can change our fortune. I might be away for many days, but don't worry, I will be fine. When I come back, we will be able to fill our house with gold and jade. Love, your obedient daughter, Minli. The obedient part isn't completely true, Minley thought to herself, as she knew her parents would not be happy to find her gone. But it's not false either. They didn't say I couldn't go, so I'm not being disobedient. Still, Minley knew that wasn't entirely right either. But she took away her uneasy feelings and prepared for her journey. On the blanket, she put a needle. Look how the author does this. He gives you a list, or she gives you a list. A needle, a pair of chopsticks, her white rabbit rice bowl, a small piece of dried bamboo, a hollow gourd full of water, a small knife, a fish net, some uncooked rice, a large pot, and the one remaining copper coin. Then she wrapped her blanket into a bag, tied it on her back, and took a last look at the shabby house. Through the window, Fruitless Mountain stood like a shadow, but Minley closed her eyes and imagined the house shimmering with gold and the mountain jade green with trees, and smiled. Then she opened the door and left. Chapter 6. As Minley left the house, she was afraid some of her neighbors would stop her or ask her where she was going. She felt she must look mysterious with a large bag on her back and full of excitement, but no one noticed her. The neighbors kept sweeping their doorways, hanging their laundry, and preparing dinner. A boy and girl continued their fight over a pretend feast of mud. When the mother called them for dinner, both refused to move, each clinging to their dishes of wet dirt. Minley had to smile at their foolishness. So Minley walked right out of the village without causing a second glance. At the edge of the village, she turned toward Fruitless Mountain. At the bottom of the mountain, she unwrapped her blanket and took out her knife, needle, rice bowl, bamboo piece, and jug of water. Then, trying to remember all of the goldfish's instructions, she cracked off a small bit of stone and rubbed it up and down the needle 99 times before tossing it back to the ground.
Pardon this interruption. Excuse me, teachers. Just a reminder that we still have students testing. So as you move throughout the hallway, let's do so quietly, please. Thank you.
Then she filled her rice bowl halfway with water and let the bamboo float in it. After that, she picked up the needle and looked at the white rabbit on the bowl. Okay, she said to the jumping rabbit, lead the way. And she placed the needle onto the bamboo. Like magic, the needle spun around. Minley smiled. Thank you, Minley said again to the painted rabbit. Now I'll follow you where you want me to go. Minley packed up her things and, carefully holding the bowl in her hand, walked in the direction of the needle, past Fruitless Mountain. Goodbye, Jade Dragon, Minley said as she left. When I come back, I will know how to make you happy again. Minley walked and walked, and the stony land slowly turned into forest. Even when the moon was high in the sky, she continued. I want to make sure I walk far enough that if Ma and Ba begin to look for me, they can't find me, Minley said to herself. The fallen leaves made a soft carpet for her feet, and the night birds flew into the sky as she passed. Only when the sky lightened to gray and the sun began to peek over the horizon did Minley sit down and rest against a tall tree. She had traveled deep into the forest, far from her village and her home. She was so tired that she quickly fell asleep.